Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. James 4:8. Gimel is the third letter in the Hebrew alphabet. We're going to start out with a strict forward fold in the hip hugger position, exhaling as we drive down, inhaling as we come up, repeating 7 times. Gimel means foot or camel, and both represent a journey. 3 times a year, the people of Israel would take a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to Mount Zion, to the temple. Now these feasts were known as the Moedim, which means the appointed times. And just as the people of Israel had an appointment to meet with God, we have an appointment to meet with God every day, every morning and every evening. The Olah Tamid was the continuing sacrifice that would burn on the altar. It was every day, every morning, and every evening. Just as Daniel did in exile, since he could not offer sacrifices, since he could not travel for the feasts, he would keep the Olah Tamid in his own way by praying towards Jerusalem outside his window. Even when there was a decree that he could not pray to any other god but the king of the land, he still continued to meet with God 3 times a day. He had a date with God, and he kept it. Because God's laws are more important than man's laws. And today we are still in exile, just as Daniel was in the land of Babylon, outside the promised land. We are still waiting to be fully in God's presence, just as Adam was in the garden in the Edenic state. So we should pray as Daniel did and follow after his example. This routine is a great way to honor God. Take some time out of your morning to just focus fully on Him. Focus on taking care of your body so you're stronger, just like Daniel and his friends did when they first got into Babylon. They ate the healthy food, and they kept themselves set apart and distinct. They didn't let themselves be educated by the teachers of Babylon and warped. They kept true to their roots. They were strong, having a solid foundation in God's Word, in His Torah. We are to be living sacrifices. We're going to switch into a split stance here, pushing off your back toe, all your weight going on your front hip. Measuring stick hands, I want you to trace up and push high overhead, fully extending. Repeating 7 times, just warming your body up, but keeping your spine stiff and strong, stretching upwards. Tamid actually comes from the root word to stretch, just as the fires of the burnt offering would ascend and stretch up to heaven. Olah is what is brought up, sacrifice. Tamid is continual, showing that we should be doing these things every day, focusing on God. Routine is good because it reminds us to focus on God. There is the spiritual and there is the physical combined. Strengthening them both together will help you along your journey. Switch to the other side. Make sure both feet are facing forward. Take your time getting balance with these exercises. You want these to be tough. You want these to challenge you. The more you lengthen, the more you stretch Tamid, the better. Pay attention to the muscles of the spine here. We're seeing stretching, those spinal erector muscles that compress us, hold us down. As we lift up against things, we become stronger because we're resisting. And that's what life is all about, resisting all the troubles and the trials. The devil wants you to live in comfort. You need to rise above that. And then you will get stronger because of that. That's how God refines us. That's how Yahweh refines us in His fire. Because He loves you. He wants you to be stronger, spiritually and physically. We can use you for more. And these are the true blessings. Blessings are not comfort. Blessings are wisdom and knowledge. So we can greater help those around us. So we can draw closer to God. Now we're going wide stance. Try not to point your toes out too far. Measuring stick hands, lengthening the spine, bringing the chest up high, expanding the rib cage, opening your arms, lift up your hands, palms up as if you're offering your sacrifice. There's many types of sacrifices. The greatest one we can give is of ourselves, of our time to God. Don't miss your appointment with Him. We're now shifting, internally rotating on the left foot, dorsiflexing as we drive upwards. We're driving up with 3 decompression breaths, getting deeper with each one. So we dorsiflex, we activate the inner thigh, and that spins our body around. So you're activating one side of the spine over the other. The third breath, you're really pressing high. That's when you should feel that shake and that tremor, and that's change happening. The Torah portion, Leviticus 22 and 23, talk that we are to give the best of our flock to Yahweh. We are to give the best sacrifice that we can. Our life, we don't want to give just a little bit. We want to give all, and we want to give our best. We want to strive to keep His commandments, His mitzvot. We do not want to profane what is holy. You are set apart. You are holy. You are righteous when you come in to the knowledge of Yeshua and obedience, following after Him. You throw away those garments, those tattered garments, and put on the clothes of the redeemed through Yeshua's sacrifice of Himself for you. So every morning, every evening, get on your knees, meet with God. He's waiting to meet with you. You don't want to miss your appointment. Split stance again. Here we're going to go for more of a woodpecker position. Again, you're pushing off your back toe, putting all your weight on your front hip. Remember the 3 points of contact on that front foot, all 3 arches of the foot, grasping and pressing up. Bring your hands into the sphere of tension, just a little bit above your eye level. You're going to do 7 arm raises, extending over the head, really challenging the muscles of the spine, and also your back foot is going to have to resist. It's not caving in. Subtle stretch on your left hip. And on your 7th one, you're going to hold 3 deep breaths, lengthening and extending at the same time, squeezing your elbows, squeezing your inner thighs too, and lengthening even more into that stance. Leviticus 22:18 talks about a foreigner or an Israelite being able to bring a burnt offering. Even if you do not consider yourself part of Israel, part of God's people, we are still told to offer sacrifices to Yahweh. And we're no longer in the land, and there's no longer a temple, so these sacrifices are of a spiritual nature. We act in remembrance, just as Daniel did. One day we will be back in the land, dwelling with Yahweh, with Yeshua reigning as king. In Revelation it talks about Yahweh being the temple, and in the millennial reign having the temple rebuilt. The Torah is about love. The letter Gimel is said to be a rich man chasing after a poor man, to give him charity, to give him love, just as the Torah commands. You can widen your stance as necessary, deepening into the squats, pulling all your weight back on your heels. Then you're transitioning, almost as if you're about to do a deadlift. And then transitioning back into the squat. In the deadlift position, you should feel your hamstrings tense. In the squat position, you should feel them open. As here, try squeezing the inner thighs even more. And here, try opening the thighs, even pushing your elbows into them. Pushing the toes down to the ground as if you're pushing the earth away from you. And here, pulling the toes up in the dorsiflexion, shifting your weight even more into your heels, and then deepening that squat. Going to one final split stance. It doesn't have to be as wide. Here we're going to do a subtle internal rotation of the hip. So the left hip is internally rotating, squeezing. The right hip is resisting. And truly the only thing moving is your hip joint. This is just a fine movement, but it's a lot of pressure. On your 7th rotation out to the side, I want you to hold it. Bring it overhead for 3 deep breaths. You can even take it longer if you want to. This is where all the work is done, is the decompression breath in these final holds. Subtle internal rotation of the right hip now. Pulling in. You can see the spinal muscles always engaged, holding the decompression stance. Keeping that tension, forcing true hip rotation. So often we're robbing motion from the spine. If you don't know how to love yourself, you're not going to be able to love others. Bring it overhead, hold and press, 3 deep breaths. Be blessed, everyone, brothers, sisters. Shalom.